Hey everybody, this is Jeremy Caldwell. I'd like to welcome you to my first Patreon.com recording. I'm going to try and work my way through these, try and figure out what exactly I'm going to be doing. For now, I'm going to have a warm-up sketch as my initial foray into these videos. I'll record it as I go, try and give some commentary as I'm working through my thought process, and hopefully it will be at least entertaining and maybe a little bit insightful for some people who want to learn a little bit more about what I'm doing. A bit about me: I am a comic book colorist, mostly for Dark Horse, IDW, and a few others. Um, but for what I'm doing here, I'm going to do full drawn, painted work like I do for basically on the side. This is going to be my reference for today. It's a new book out by one of my 10 Ton Studios fellow officers, Chris Burnham. He is the artist on the book. Grant Morrison, you probably know, is the writer, and Nathan Fairbairn is the colorist. So I'm going to pull that off to my other screen. A bit about what I'm working on is I have a Wacom Cintiq, the 21UX, DTX, whatever the newer version of the 21 was. It's now been way surpassed by the 24, and I think they got the new 27 out. But it still works for me. I've got a pretty decent CPU, even though it's a stock Dell XPS like 8300. And I'm running dual monitors, so I pulled that other reference. The reference image, I just pulled it over to my other monitor, so it's out of my way. So what I'm going to do is, there's all my info up at the top, but I'm going to hide that so I can work. So if you look at my layers palette here, sorry, I'm working in Photoshop CS6 as well. I have my background, which is just white. My rough layer, I kind of toss a gray shade in there. I'll get into more about that why. I have on top of that is a color multiply layer, and we'll deal with that. Render is where I do most of my final stuff, and the grid is just for layout, so I know what I'm doing, where it fits on the page. I try and follow the rule of thirds whenever possible, making things align or important things hit on different thirds of the page. It's not quite true thirds because I do have a border on here that will kind of crop the page, so I don't have anything super important off to the side for printing issues if I decide to make this into a print, which probably not. Most of these are just for fun and practice. These are my chances to just kind of experiment and see what works. I have a lot of different custom brushes, but my number one go-to is just the hard round. I like that just as my basic. I'm going to set that to black, and I'm on my rough layer, and then I kind of change my size. Oh, I do also use a lot of keyboard shortcuts, so you won't see me using the menu systems. I have a Razer Nostromo that I've programmed. It's usually for gaming, but I programmed it with a bunch of my keyboard shortcuts programmed in. So I have that on my left hand while I'm just drawing with my pen straight on the screen on the Cintiq on my right. I could probably, one of these Patreons, I'll put a layout plan of my Nostromo and some of my shortcuts and stuff like that. But for this one, I better get going because I've already talked too long. So, The Nameless is a new book. It's a kind of a sci-fi. There's only one issue out. It's really kind of tough to call what exactly it's about at this point. But I found the character imagery very interesting. I like the iconography, the symbols, and kind of the spacesuit idea. So I'm going to work with some of that. So to get started, I'm just going to basically rough in. I'm not going to try and copy the cover, obviously. I want to use it as for finding out what the characters are. So I think I'm going to have kind of a menacing type of imagery where they're kind of looming in the background. There's actually a symbol in the book that I want to capture. I think think that's the symbol. I'll have to look it up. I'm going to pause and look that up just to make sure that I have that's kind of a major symbol in the book. So hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. No time for you. But yes, it is basically, it's two diamonds stacked on top of each other with a line down the center, which I thought was a really cool symbol, but I want to make sure that it actually lines up here. What I did there is I just sampled some of my background color to clean up this a little bit and basically treat it like an eraser. And so switch back to black up there in the corner. I lost my reference page. There we go. Okay, back on my other screen. So what I'm going to do now is I've got this kind of this guy looming over. What I want to do is I want to have this kind of looming character here. And I just accidentally pulled that off. Looming character. He's got these really broad shoulders because he's in a spacesuit. He actually has... actually, I need to pull that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select that. And I want to move it a little bit more into the center of the imagery. Right about there. I think I might actually shrink it a little bit too. There we go. And switch back to my brush using the B keyboard button, which is actually one of my functions. And deselect that so I don't get stuck there. Okay, fill in that stuff with some gray just to keep it not distracting to me. Yeah, let's see. So I've got that in the center. The characters themselves actually do have a circular chest thing, which actually I'm going to cheat with a little bit and just do that. That'll draw a little bit of a nice circle, and I'm actually going to duplicate that same circle size up on the head so that I have a nice balance of how that's going to fit. So, yeah, so it's got the astronaut sort of latching helmet thing here. On the forehead, on the actual helmet visor, there's this really cool imagery of a kind of a hand palm with an eye in the middle. I'm just going to draw that. It's a problem I get with drawing up towards the top of the page. Sometimes it pulls off. So it's got 3 fingers and an eye in the center. And then obviously the helmet edges there, more stuff here, pulling in the thing, the suit. He's got his circle here. And what I'm going to do, this isn't going to be sitting on top quite so obviously. I'm going to do some sort of fadey type stuff on it to make it a little more graphical. Down below there, they have the suit's got some venting. I'm not sure exactly what that is, and pull some of those there. Actually, I'm going to drop another layer just because I want to be able to draw in. Actually, I'm going to sit kind of in the middle of that circle. It's kind of a circle with a square and a dot, and kind of diamonds coming off of it there. And all sorts of, it's like Mayan, or I'm not sure exactly what it's supposed to be, Mayan iconography. Okay, so there you have the very basics of my sketch. I'm going to toss in a little bit of value. I'm going to toss another layer. I work with a lot of layers usually. So I'm going to toss in some value to kind of frame certain parts of this. So the bottom is going to kind of fade out. Since this is a very simple warm-up sketch, I actually have a lot of other work I need to get done today, so this is just a basic warm-up. Actually, I'm going to leave the background white, and I think that'll make it stand out a little bit better. Sorry, I keep hitting my mic. Hopefully that's not too annoying. I'll find out. Yeah, fill in some of that with darker face is dark. I think having that dark face gives it a real kind of, not really menacing, but more of a hidden quality. Like we don't know what this person's really going to be doing because we haven't really learned too much about these guys yet. Okay, so now I go to my color multi-layer, and I am going to just toss in some basic colors. This guy's got a lot of red on in his uniform. The actual uniform itself is gray, but the imagery has this red glow type stuff to it. So I'm just going to block in some of that, the hand, the eye. And then I'm going to put, I think, a bluish, well, I'm going to kind of have a blue on the uniform, I think. I'm actually going to go orange with the background, just because I think that'll offset and kind of give an eerie, actually green would probably be eerie, but that's what he did kind of in the cover, and I don't want to copy too much of the cover because I want this to be a little bit more of a unique process. Okay, and then I'm going to toss some more the gray, blue on the uniform over there. And right now this looks probably like a whole lot of nothing, and that's fine. I am going to toss, I think I'm going to actually go with that same orange, although it's going to be a lot darker on this imagery when I get to doing it. I think that'll tie that in with some of this stuff back here. Okay, so what I've got there is the basics of my drawing. I'm actually going to zoom in just a little bit, or zoom out so it's easier and I don't hit the edge of the drawing quite as much. And now I get to do the fun part, which is basically paint it. Actually I'm going to hide my grid. I don't think I need that because it's a very centralized image. I use the sample tool on the eyedrop tool a lot. So that's going to be kind of my basic go-to. There's a lot of things that are going to be drawn on here, but I'm just going to start with kind of pulling in some of the imagery of, tightening up this central image. He's got square, circle kind of going around it. And then from there he's got thin lines coming out, thin line coming out, and then connectors that go across there. Okay, so that's the basic part there. And then it's got those crescents. And little lines coming in, and little, I don't know what the heck that shape would be called, but a little U, Z, depending, and then pieces that connect across the bottom. It looks like smaller pieces. Okay, so that's the basics of that. Oh, and then he's got around the edge. It all goes all the way around, touching the points of those, but not touching the points of the other decorative elements. Sorry, sometimes I get drawing and I forget to speak, so hopefully I won't maintain radio silence for too long if I do stop. Okay, so there's the basics of the symbol. He actually does have them on his shoulders, I'm seeing here in the reference, so I'm just going to, some sort of circular concentric circle pattern on that. As far as the hand, I'm going to go ahead and sketch in the hand as well with the fingers. The eye seems to be very stylized. Okay. So, and then I'm going to try and pull some of the details into the helmet area. Kind of lighten up certain areas, but not all of them. I want to make it appear to be lit from some direction. At this point, I am really just being very quick, rough, not paying a whole lot of attention to the detail of what it is I am drawing. I know he's got folds here that would catch the light in different ways. And then I'm going to sample out of the image and kind of blend some of that stuff in to create a bit more of a gradation. So yeah, pull in there. What this does, this is actually just a layer set to normal. So I'm going to be grabbing from that quite a bit, and it'll just cover up everything else that's already been drawn underneath it. But my brush is set to mimic or opacity. For the harder I press, the more opaque the drawing is going to be. Pull out a little bit of detail on these before I forget them, just so I don't lose them in the drawing. That is a hazard that I run into, is I'll start painting over something and then be like, oh, where the hell did that piece go? It's gone now. I'm going to make these creases a little bit more pronounced by adding some darker area to them. The arms kind of have a fold in here that I think is unique, not unique, but interesting. And actually I'm going to pull even straight black down into here to kind of really set off the bottom part of this drawing. I'm actually going to have to cover up some of this, and then I'll go back in and pull it out. Actually, I've got some other type of brush tricks that I'm going to show that'll make for a bit more of an interesting spot there. I'm going to lighten up around some of this stuff to make it pop out a little more. Also, it kind of erases some of those sketch lines, because I think it's more interesting and more accurate to not see black lines around things. I know it's odd. I work in comics, which is largely, things are outlined, but I come from a painting background, and I like that, the way the way you see you don't see outlines very much. It does happen, but it's more the exception than the rule. And I like that you can really get some unique effects by, it's called lost edges, found edges, stuff like that, where you can see bits of things by what is around them. It's kind of a principle that they use in science a lot of, we know it's there because we can see the effect of the things around it. It's a little bit different idea, but the same concept that, I know that there is an edge here because of the way this thing butts up against it, not because there's a line drawn around it. All right. I'm going to actually, there's a concept of reflected light goes that if you have kind of a dark area, it will have, this is very, very much paraphrasing, but there'll be some sort of light around it. So it almost creates a lighter area, but it's usually fairly thin and not nearly as bright as the area that's getting the most light. However, in this case, the most light would probably be fading in from this lower background here, so I'm actually going to pull some of that in. So it kind of looks like there's some glow coming around behind him. I'm going to work a little more on refining this shape here. It gets really bright in the center on the reference. It's like it's glowing. So I'm actually going to almost a white, a little bit of pink in there, but pretty white, and toss some central glowing type lines to it. Yeah. So again, this is just a sketch. This is not intended for finish work. This is actually just my warm-up for the day. I actually have some pages for Dark Horse to color that I need to get on here in just a minute. But I wanted to see about putting something up on Patreon. I always call it yeah, Patreon. Sorry, I'm distracted trying to see what I'm drawing and talk at the same time. Doesn't always work well. And I wanted to kind of give an idea of what I might want to do for some of my videos and pieces. So if you're a sponsor, I greatly appreciate it. I think that that's a great, I use the word great a lot, an excellent way to support artists that you enjoy or think show promise, or just you want to be nice and throw us a couple bucks here and there. Being an artist is not the most lucrative position, but you know, I make a decent wage, so I'm not too hard up on money like a lot of people. But I, you know, art does not pay all my bills. I have a very supportive wife. So that symbolism is needing to be pulled out just a little more. And when I sketched it in, I kind of left too much. I should have done it on a separate layer, because now I'm doing all this painting around it, and that creates a whole separate set of issues, which, you know, is kind of how I was trained. I went to school and at University of Washington, and had my degree in, well, it's actually in interdisciplinary visual arts, but it's in painting. And so I learned, you know, I painted on canvas. So having these things where you have to kind of go around areas really is not foreign to me. And sometimes it can create a really great effect. You can see a lot of different, different effects by having that that background. Oops, wrong color. Where did my, oh. The one key I did not map to my Razor Nostromo was an undo function, because I try not to do undo. I like to make it work. But in times like that where I actually had the wrong color, that is kind of just I'm going to have to undo that. That's not going to be helpful in any real way, shape, or form. I'm just really popping this with some white. Contrast is what draws your eye. When you're looking at a piece, what you're really looking at, what draws your attention first, is contrast. So if I want to have people looking at either at the head or at this symbol, that's where I would have my most contrast. Right now I kind of want it to flow straight down the middle, so that's why some of this is really heavy contrast here. And then actually I should probably pull even more, so it creates a stronger vertical line down into the symbol area. And then the symbol being so bright, you know, it's got that bright pink, it's got the glow, would really pull people's attention down to the symboled area. Yeah, something like that. And then these should actually, I should probably fade them a little more just by painting over them with lowered opacity. So you can see that there is something there, but you're not really paying attention to it. I want you to pay attention to these super unique details, not the little vent nipples on the spacesuit. I'm pulling out some areas here so that it gives a bit more depth to it. What that will do, I'm not entirely certain, but I think that if I want that to be important, I need to make it stand out even more, even if I'm not sure that that's what Chris wants, Chris Burnham, the artist, or if that's in his design, to have it be three-dimensional, I guess, in space. But for me, for this piece, and being as it's not production work for the book itself, it's just for fun, because I like to support and share artwork that inspires me. I think I think you'll allow me the liberty of playing with it. Chris, if you ever do see this, let me know if it's not cool with you. Okay, so I've got the basic concept down, and then I wanted, if you think back, I've got all these different layers. I had the symbol Did I draw that? No, that was there. The symbol here on that. And I want to toss that on top because I'm not sure how exactly I want it to look. So I'm going to take a kind of a blood red and I'm going to follow it. I'm actually going to make it a bit more, I guess, crazy. I'm going to move it. I'm going to be able to move this around. So that's not really much of an issue. So I'm going to, for now, to make sure that things are, oops, I missed. To make sure that things fit the graphed plan of how they had it. There, pull that down, hits there, pull that down. So now I have the diamonds stacked on top of each other, drawn out the way it is in the book. And then I'm going to flip my pen over, and I've got an eraser. And I'm going to erase all this junk, my structure lines as I... hopefully you guys aren't hearing that whine, whatever it is, in my speakers. I'm using my son's GeForce X12 Earforce. I don't know what the heck it is. It's a gaming headphone, gaming mic headphone. But I couldn't find my regular recording mics, so I said, can I borrow yours? And being the good freshman that he is and a gamer, he said, sure. So he actually does video production stuff, so maybe I'll have him clean this stuff up for me when I'm done destroying it. So I'm going to toss in more bold lines here to kind of pull that up. And then even thicker, deeper line here, because I'm going to experiment with something here. With doing a lighter line inside. Okay, so I've got that on top, but I'm not sure I want it to be right there. So I'm going to pull it off center. Actually, I think I think that might obscure that design too much. Just going to pull it down, shrink it a little bit. Actually, I might have it even bigger, coming kind of off the page. And actually, where's my grid lines? I can't show them while that's going. So I'm going to toss my grid lines back up. Actually, I want to make them a little darker so I can see them over this. There we go. And pull that onto a grid line. And I wonder if put that apex right there. The center of it on that 1/3 line. Kind of go. Actually, I want it even bigger, I think. Okay, so do that. And then I'm going to switch this, I think, to an overlay. No, I don't want overlay. Let me scroll through some of these options here. Dissolve, multiply, linear burn, darker burn. Lighten might work. Screen's a little weak. Linear dodge is usually a good one. So I'm going to go linear dodge, drop the opacity down so it's just a little bit off to the edge there. Okay, and so that allows me to have this kind of overlaid imagery. Now for the fun, I'm going to put a mask on it and take some of my texture brush here. This is one that I got when I was working on Edward Scissorhands, and I'm going to paint in some mask of it to kind of break up that texture, or break up that symbol imagery. Gonna make it look a little bit beaten up. I'm actually gonna go real big on it. I'm not sure what the actual brush, Drew Roush, the penciler, well, that's a big brush because it's taken forever to draw. The penciler, illustrator, whatever, on the book, he had that brush and he gave it to me. So I'm gonna go with my painterly brush, and I'm gonna set it to linear dodge, and I'm gonna work over some of that So it kind of pulls some of those lines out more. But it'll still be hidden by whatever's in the masked area. So there's that. Yeah, it's a little graphic. I kind of wish it covered more. Actually, I also don't like it sitting on that same axis there as the symbol. So let's see if I can move that around a little bit. Actually, yeah, that works better because that hits it up into the upper face and still pulls off to the edge. Okay, so that works for me. Brush. Okay. So I think I might call that good. Kind of wish. Actually, I'm going to toss another layer. I do a lot of layers. And I'm going to knock out. Actually, I don't want linear dodge. I want normal on this one. I'm going to knock. Oops, I don't want that much. Trying to think of a way that I can cover up some of this detail. I'm just kind of going in with a gray so that this symbol stands out, and then I'm going to use what I've drawn here and kind of mess around with it a little bit by changing the opacity and putting some different. Actually, I want that to only affect the layer below it, so I'm tossing that. Crank up the color. I don't want that. And still way too intense. I think that kind of works. Okay, I'm going to call that one good, except for the fact I want some texture because I love textures. So let's see, what am I good default? Oh, for St. George. I like that one. I had a book called St. George with Riley Brown and Fred Van Lent, and we I created this texture. It's based on a rust pattern brush. I'm going to actually for this, because I'm going to have it on a separate layer, I'm going to go normal, and I'm going to pull some of this red and kind of put some texture on the background, a little bit down here, and then change that to actually overlay, I think is what I wanted. Overlay. That'll give a little bit of depth of color into some of these areas and kind of pull this red in here and pull the yellow in here just to give it a bit more, I don't know, visual oomph. And I think I'm going to call that good. I'm going to toss a signature on here. I don't always sign my work, but sometimes I do. In this case, I think I will. Using that pink that I used in a lot of the stuff. I'll go over here. There we go. And that one is from The Nameless by Grant Morrison and Chris Burnham. And this is my first Patreon video. There's my URL that you can follow me at. And this has been video 1. And I thank you for watching.